Hello my friends, how are you guys doing? I'm sorry if you hear any extra noise in the back because they are working around the building. So let's look at these GPS forums right here, satellite navigation GPS discussion forums. A big shout out to my friends Leandro and Afonso in Brazil. They do an excellent job. Afonso with almost 400,000 subscribers, PhD in geology, flat earther. God bless you, brothers. So GPS coverage of Antarctica. I have a Garmin GPS, but it has no coverage of Antarctica whatsoever. At around 60 degrees south, the world just stops, as if Antarctica doesn't even exist. My question is, does anyone know of any commercially available GPS device, Garmin or otherwise, which has coverage of Antarctica? I've done a Google search, but I couldn't find anything. By coverage, I mean a device which is capable of finding one's location in latitudes such as 60 degrees south to 80 degrees south, ranging capable of showing where a person is on a given landmass. I'm also wondering if there are any GPS devices which have a non-Mercator projection of Antarctica. So we have talked about the Mercator projection before. You remember the video I made a few days ago about how faulty and what a hazardous map the Mercator is, the projection.
Everything started to change in the mid-20th century. There was a world war, and more airplanes were being used than ever before. Editorials published in the New York Times in the 40s called for the Mercator to be discarded and reminded readers the grossness of its errors should not be forgotten. In a series of orthographic maps in 1942 and 43, Fortune magazine declared the Mercator is no map for global war, and it was a dangerous map to use in studying global strategy. An expose on cartography Life published around the same time called the Mercator a mental hazard in a war that is plotted on great circles across the land and sea and through the air.
So the Mercator is not a map for anything, for global positioning or wars. But they keep on insisting on the Mercator projection for GPS and for those flight plans like Wolfie uses. So let's go on, keep on looking at this. So let me see, I clicked on this before. Yeah, this is Antarctica. So what they mean is that you only get coverage until around 60 right here. So the whole of Antarctica is not covered. So let's go back there and look at more. I have always assumed that the 24 satellites that make up the working constellation of GPS system covers every part of the world's surface equally, as in the example movie here. So I'm clicking, this is what you get. You're gonna get this. It shows all these satellites go in every direction, covering the whole globe. But in fact, that's not really true. Okay, we're gonna look at this, compare both the globe and the flat earth map. You see which one makes more sense. So I've discovered that Australia's KC base used the following models: Garmin GPS 45XL, Garmin GPS 128, Garmin GPS 126. These appear to be hiking style models, but more technical, more for maritime use, no user-friendly map, interface, etc. I'm also wondering if these models have Antarctica coverage by default. Literally anywhere on the surface of the Earth is navigable, or whether some special adaptation was added to them to make them compatible with Antarctica. Now the issue is that the mentioned models all appear to be old, out of stock, or unavailable. Does anyone know of any more recent version? So I also found a model called Garmin eTrax 10. Now here is a response to that. I would not recommend, apart from Amazon, call the same model simply eTrax 10. The worldwide map would be a base map of the world with country, OSM, outlines the limited details as far as I know. The Garmin world map does not cover Antarctica. Of course not. I tried OpenStreetMaps OSM and the GPS still doesn't recognize Antarctica, at least with the Garmin UVI. I downloaded map data from Garmin OpenStreetMap NL, which I specifically selected titles with including Antarctica. Then I put the downloaded data onto the micro SD card for my Garmin UVI as a Gmap supple IMG file. I know that it worked because the map data file under the info section of the map showed the OSM with a check mark next to it. Also, I know it worked because the northernmost part of one of the titles I selected included Cape Town, South Africa, and when I zoomed in at Cape Town, there was street data there that was not previously there. The problem is that my Garmin, blah, 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 won't scroll below 60 degrees south, even with Antarctica Cape Town data installed loaded. I even tried forcing it to go to a high latitude, 85 degrees south, and the car view appeared as glitches boxes, and when I zoomed out, it reverted to 59.59 south, just north of 60. It's weird that the base map won't let you go below 60 degrees south. Any solutions? These are the areas that are covered. From 60 to 90 is not covered. Wow, it's not covered. And here's another one right here. It shows the same thing. It covers all this area except here, except from 60 to 90. Going back here, actually the GPS constellation does not cover the globe equally. Of course not. So let's move on to Photoshop and take a look at this real quick. Alright guys, now let's look at both models, the globe model and the flat earth, and look which ones. Let's see which one makes more sense. So here's the globe. See here, article circle, 66 degrees north. Actually, the coverage, it says from 75 up, you can't get coverage. And down here, down below 60 degrees to 80, you can't get any more. Anything down below here, below this 66 degrees south, you can't get coverage with GPS. So if we compare, this is what we get. So we get almost all of the globe earth covered except Antarctica. How come just this tiny little bit here is not covered by any GPS, even though we saw, as we will compare now on the animation, that satellites go all the way here, all directions. But how come this tiny area here on the globe is not covered? Neither is this tiny area here. Well, let's look at the flat earth map and then you understand why. Here we have the Gleason's map. Alright, this tiny here, it's from 75 to 90 is a no-fly zone. This explains why, if you go back to my video, flights Singapore to New York over the flat earth, you understand why from New York to Singapore it goes this way, and the return flight comes this way. Going to Singapore from New York, it flies according to, remember there is here the polar jet stream, goes in this direction, so it goes along the wind to Singapore, comes back along the wind to New York. Never flies directly over the North Pole. It's a no-fly zone. And this red line here, it's 60 degrees. From this point forward, it's 6 degrees to 90. It's another no-fly zone here. Nothing happens here, no coverage of GPS. Only this area here, and actually mostly of this area where the continents are. This area here, deep south in the Pacific, it's a no coverage zone. If you remember the video where Captain Marcello says that he flies for 10-11 hours here in the dark, no communication.
Okay, we're on board flight Aerolíneas Argentinas 1181. We're just coming after about 10 hours of isolation flying over the ocean. We're just over land right now at waypoint Satin, S-A-T-I-N, and this is the first sighting of the land after 10 hours of overnight crossing on the Pacific.
So this area here, you rarely get any coverage, unless there are some balloons here and towers, E. Lauren. But otherwise, this is the area where you get coverage. Not barely, depending on where you are. Like if you are in the Amazon, you don't get coverage. If you leave the city, it's hard to get a signal. But, GPS will work most of these places here. Here, you are contained in this area on the flat earth. So let's look from this perspective right here. If you are on Antarctica, as we were reading, you have to look towards the 60 degrees south to get GPS to view the satellites. So they are all contained in this area right here. Okay, no coverage in Antarctica. Remember, there are no flights going from, no circumnavigation north and south. It's impossible because this is how the Earth is. You can only circumnavigate from west to east or from east to west. Never from north to south. It's impossible. The Antarctica is the border. You cannot go across this area. So this map explains why we cannot get coverage in Antarctica. Antarctica is the ring. It was known, if you look at the encyclopedias, it was always called the Antarctic ring because it's a ring of ice, and we are here. We are surrounded by Antarctica, and we are in this area here. We cannot leave Earth. This is where we live, and we cannot leave this area. Okay, Antarctica is not covered. It makes no sense, this globe Earth here, for several reasons. One, that we are not spinning. No, this is what the truth is right here. The Earth is flat. You don't get coverage outside this area because there's no way. Okay, there's nothing here. It's dead. No life, no animal life, no vegetal life, nothing. On the opposite, here in the Arctic, you see summer, you see 80 kinds of plants and animals, but no life in Antarctica. So this is what we have. I'll see you next time. Be safe. Earth is flat and stationary. See you next time, guys. Bye-bye.